Day 64, I'm reading If God is Love, page 25. I wasn't surprised my friend's daughter responded to the altar call after reviewing the play's threats of pain, torture, and separation from her family. Unfortunately, she'd heard absolutely nothing about the love of God. Her visit to the altar didn't change her. It only reinforced her hunch that God was to be feared. She soon lapsed back into the destructive behaviors her mother had hoped to rescue her from. Using fear is not only manipulative, it is also ineffective, making people even more resistant to God's grace. Fear cripples our ability to love and act wisely. The philosopher Bertrand Russell said, neither a man nor a crowd nor a nation can be trusted to act humanely or to think sanely under the influence of a great fear. There is no fear greater than that of death and destruction. A theology based on this fear seldom inspires great acts of compassion and service. When we live in a constant fear of divine rejection, we focus all our attention to securing our survival. Sadly, this self-absorption only leads us further from love. Fear and love are incompatible. Fear indicates our distrust of the one who claims to love us. A child trembles when a parent threatens, "If you don't behave, I'll send you away." A wife is terrorized when a husband warns, "If you leave me, I'll kill you." Human beings cower when God commands, "Serve me, or I'll damn you to hell." Where fear is encouraged, love withers. When fear is encouraged, love withers. My mother came from a broken family. She became convinced her father left because of her misbehavior, that she was bad and he'd rejected her. She carried this burden into her marriage. Indeed, the night before she married my father, her grandfather, who'd raised her, pulled her aside and warned, "This man you're marrying is too good for you, but if he leaves you, we'll take you back." My father tells the story of the first night he left my mother home alone. He turned to find her hysterical, sobbing in their darkened living room. When he asked what was wrong, she replied, "I was afraid you'd never come back." Though he assured her he'd never leave her, it took many years for my mother to trust my father's love. Only his unconditional love had the power to heal her deepest wounds, calm her secret fears, and transform her into a mature, beautiful human being. Where love is triumph, fear ends. Human transformation comes when love casts out fear, assuring us we'll never be disowned, abandoned, or destroyed. Only in the rich soil of unconditional love can we truly grow. Believing in God's desire to save every person calms our fears of death and destruction. It assures us of God's acceptance. Grace gives us the freedom to live boldly. Unfortunately, most of us don't move directly from fear to grace. Many of us, myself included, take a detour through manipulation and pride. We work out our salvation with fear and trembling, negotiating with God. God may save us, but proper behavior keeps us saved. Our task is to learn the catechism, complete the rites, affirm the doctrine, and obey the rules. In turn, God writes our name in the book of life, prepares our heavenly mansion, and fits us for wings. As a young pastor, though I spoke God's grace, I operated as if salvation were a trophy. I and those like me were on the winning game. We'd run the race, crossed the finish line, and won the prize. I no longer feared God, but my relationship with God was still lacking. I had simply moved from a hell-fearing to a heaven-earning religion. Okay, chapter, I forgot which chapter is that, and a new chapter, Earning Grace. The problem with rewards. Religion focused on escaping hell's flame is ugly, but appeal based on entering heaven's gates are equally flawed. I grew up hearing as many descriptions of the joys of heaven as I did of the mysteries of hell. They were also vivid, with talk of golden street and opulent mansions, of choirs, of angels and banquet feasts, and of heavenly reunions with loved ones. If hell was the stick, heaven was the carrot. Many of the teachers and preachers of my childhood downplayed hell and damnation, though it remained part of the formula to be dusted off during our periodic revivals. Most of the time we were tempted by heaven's rewards rather than threatened with hell's fires. If we'd accept Christ, attend church, and be a good citizen, our eternal security and blessing were assured. Life on earth wasn't easy, but our struggles earned us stars in our crowns. This isn't a new religious motivation. One day, two of Jesus' disciples, James and John, pulled him aside privately and made a request. They asked, "Grant us to sit, one at your right hand and one at your left, in your glory." They assumed Jesus would soon initiate a kingdom, and they were lobbying, if not for crowns, at least for thrones. They weren't embarrassed by their less and noble motives for following Jesus. The other disciples, once they heard of James and John's request, were more jealous and angry. No one questions the propriety of seeking rewards. They all assumed being part of the inner circle was a cause for pride and a means of blessing. Jesus challenged his disciples. He said, "You know that among the Gentiles, those whom they recognize as their rulers lord over them, and their great ones are tyrants over them. But it is not so among you. But whoever wishes to become great among you must be your servant, and whoever wishes to be the first among you must be slave of all." He wanted his disciples to approach religion as an opportunity for intimate relationship and service, not as a manipulative calculation designed to assure power and prestige. Unfortunately, throughout history, many of Jesus' disciples have reduced religion to a good investment. Constantine believed his conversion to Christ secured his victory in battle. The popes promised the Crusaders paradise in return for liberating Jerusalem. Martin Luther revolted against the practice of selling indulgences, but soon offered Lutheran princes assurances of God's blessing if they opposed the Roman Church. Religion, rather than being a response to God, has often degenerated into a self-serving strategy. Okay, it's almost 10 minutes. In 17th century, Blaise Pascal made such convincing popular with his rationale for becoming a Christian. He argued that if heaven and hell exist and we reject God, we risk eternal punishment. If heaven and hell don't exist and we accept God, we lose nothing. Therefore, becoming a Christian was the best bet. That's quite a famous one. Okay, I should stop here. Please correct me if you can. Thank you.